married to a police officer. You just always have to appreciate every day and every moment that you have.
I think if a person were to call 911 and really had an emergency, Pete would be the guy that they would want to show up.
You know, with 14 years into my career, I'd experienced just about everything at that point.
Hands up, where I can see them.
And sometimes you get that feeling that says, you know what, something isn't right here, and I really didn't get this until it was too late.
Pete had no idea this man was as bad as he was.
Joseph McGrotha had stated that he would never go back to prison again, no matter what.
On the police radio, we heard an officer scream.
Pete Soulis was in trouble. It was a bad deal.
I knew, Pete, you gotta move now, or you're gonna die.
I was trying to grasp that. Pete had actually been shot.
I had 45 seconds on this earth. You know, I'm gonna bleed out and it's game over. My thought process was simply, I'm not gonna leave this parking lot, but neither is he. It was October 19th, 1997. I was working the evening shift. I was a patrolman with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in Jacksonville, Florida. I was 38 years of age, married, 2 small children, and I was 14 years into my career. You know, with 14 years, I'd experienced just about everything at that point, and I was in good physical shape, yeah, on top of my game. Jacksonville, Florida, the landmass size alone is the biggest city in the country, and a lot of people don't realize that. And just that size is gonna, you know, keep us, law enforcement-wise, busy. So, you know, I felt like I had probably 25, 30 years experience in 14 years just because of the environment that I was working in. It was an extremely slow evening, unusually so. Generally, we don't have time to eat, and this night was not the case. In fact, I got to go home and have dinner with my family. You don't get to do that very often.
So, what's for dinner?
Must be a really slow one.
Hasn't been this slow in weeks. Can't remember the last time I actually got to come home for a meal. So, how was soccer?
It was awesome. I almost got a goal.
That's great. Sorry I missed it. I promise I'll be there on Saturday.
Lindsay has a meet Saturday too, so you're gonna have to pick one or the other.
Dad, you have to come to my meet. It's my last practice. But if he comes to mine, then he can still be my friend.
Don't make me pick. Now, just have to figure out how to be, you know, 2 places at once.
How are you gonna get out of this one?
He has to come to mine.
Great family life. We made the decision early in our marriage that when we had kids that my wife was going to stay home. So she's basically raised those children because I've been very active.
Wow.
I met Pete in 1984, and of course he was, you know, in great shape and handsome, and he was very sweet, very gentlemanly and chivalrous. I knew that he wanted to be a police officer. He was already in law enforcement, and I never thought I would date someone that was a police officer, but, you know, he was just so passionate about protecting people.
Rolls are amazing.
They're really good.
It's time for lights out.
Where are you going?
I'm gonna go back to work. Gotta catch some bad guys.
Can we go to the movies this weekend, Dad?
We'll see.
Then can we go to the park?
You just get all kinds of plans, don't you? That's sweetie.
Night.
Hey, you gotta get back to bed.
Just want to say goodnight, Daddy.
All right. Night, Pistol. Get some sleep. Off you go. Get some sleep. Love you. Hey there.
Hey there.
You studying tonight?
Yeah. Midterm's coming up.
The one thing I always insisted on was that he always wore his vest, because back then it wasn't mandatory that they wear their bulletproof vest.
Don't worry. The vest is on.
Not you I worry about, it's the bad guys.
I'll be all right.
Pete was very good at what he did. It's like he has a calling. And so I felt very confident, you know, when he went to work. You know, I always said a prayer for him. And I just didn't worry to the extent like you would imagine.
I think if a person were to call 911 and really had an emergency, Pete would be the guy that they would want to show up. The area where Pete worked was a high crime area. Assaults, rapes, robberies, murders.
About 9 o'clock at night, I was tasked to back up a female officer that was searching a building. It had an alarm go off.
Gulf 234 on scene. Hey.
Hey. No broken windows. No sign of a break-in. All clear.
Would at least given us something to do.
Yeah.
It is dead out here. I have never seen it this slow. I've got to get into something.
Be careful what you wish for, Pete.
Have a good one.
You too.
We searched the building, no issues, everything was secure, false alarm. So I started heading to the interstate. There's a lot of crime on the interstate, and it dumps into our city or runs through it constantly. I conducted a routine traffic stop.
Jacksonville, Florida covers over 800 square miles, consists of approximately 1 million people. Every day you turn the TV on the news, there's at least 1 or 2 shootings in Jacksonville.
A high percentage was because of the drug trade and the drug traffic in this particular area where Pete worked. And it was his choice to be there. He wanted to be where the action was.
Generally, there's nothing but bad guys and police out at that time of night. And I was complacent that night, you know. I was out looking for bad guys, but I was still complacent. Jacksonville, Florida, it's a blue-collar city. A lot of good people there, but, you know, we have our share of problems. Generally, there's nothing but bad guys and police out at that time of night. And I was complacent that night, you know. I was out looking for bad guys, but I was still complacent.
Now you got a taillight out?
I'm sorry, officer. This is my dad's truck.
I get up to the vehicle, I realize this guy's just heading home from work. You know, he's got a tail light out. I told him, you know, adios, get your light fixed.
All right, I'm just gonna give you a warning today.
Thank you, sir.
Get the taillight fixed.
Yes, sir.
You have a good day.
I noticed that a marked unit had pulled up just to check my back. A marked vehicle is a patrol car. It's what every citizen recognizes as the police. I was appreciative, you know, I didn't call the guy over there. He was just that slow a night that he could come over here and back me up. As he leaves, I go ahead and backed up to the back of this closed gas station. I wanted to back up there for several reasons. I wanted to catch my log up. I was a SWAT team member, had been on the team for about 9 years at that point, and they had just issued me a new weapon.
SWAT stands for Special Weapons and Tactics. Pete would normally work as a regular patrol officer, and only if an incident occurred, an emergency, then he would transition into part of the SWAT unit.
So I had walked to the rear of the trunk and I was expecting the weapon. I closed that trunk, on top of that gear, got back in the car, called my wife. She was studying to be a nurse.
Hello?
Hey, babe.
I guess it's a really slow night, huh?
Yeah, just catching up on my activity log. Thought I'd give you a quick call. How are the kids?
We were discussing the kids. When I see out of my peripheral vision, I see a car leaving I-95. It was going northbound. When I saw him exit the interstate with his lights off, police work, that's a clue. And he pulls in and around the pumps, and he pulls to the phone booth, which is not unusual if he had stopped.
Write a check for the field trip, too.
Yeah, sorry, babe. The car just pulled up with its lights off. Doesn't have a clue that there's a marked unit right here behind him.
He's up to something.
Okay, he didn't see you?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to call you back.
Okay. Be careful, I love you.
Love you too.
Pete was very good at what he did. I was never very nervous or overly worried or concerned about Pete and his job. I really didn't think a whole lot about it, so I never dreamed, you know, this would be a night that something would happen.
7070117, what are all please?
I'm seated in the car behind the gas station, and I watch this guy, and he pulls in, lights off, and understand that I only had ambient light. There was a street light by a phone booth, that was it. Everything else was pretty dark. It took him 3 or 4 minutes to kind of get himself set up exactly where he wanted to be. Across the street from where he was parked was a strip mall. Most of the businesses were closed, except for the far business to the left, closest to him was a sandwich shop. It was open. They get robbed all the time in Jacksonville. I immediately got on, we had MDTs or laptops at the time. We would log out on routine or non-emergency calls. We'd log out on this MDT or computer. That ended up being a mistake.
All the other units around him would not have known where he was because they hadn't heard him come up on the radio.
And if I had went out on the radio and put the call out that I was stopping a 13 vehicle or a suspicious vehicle, they would have started rolling my way, there's no doubt. And this incident probably would have never occurred. So I kept my lights off, and I rolled my mark unit out. As I'm walking toward the vehicle, I remember turning the radio down on my Motorola. I didn't want him to know I was there until I wanted him to know I was there. I was directly behind the car when the driver immediately just dove to the passenger floorboard.
Jacksonville Sheriff, sit up right now and show me your hands. Show me your hands. Throw the keys out of the window. You step out of the car, slowly. Hands up.
He looked like a surfer dude. He did not look like a threat at all. What's important is that I could see what appeared to be a large beer frothing out its contents into that floorboard where he had dove. I'm thinking, oh, it was an open container. This kid just dumped it, trying to hide from the police. I'm a little more frustrated because it scared me, honestly. But the threat level was going down.
And walk towards me, slowly.
I noticed immediately that his hands are empty with the exception of a driver's license in his right hand.
What's your name?
Joseph McGrotha.
Where you from, Joseph?
Georgia.
All right, Joseph, and what are you doing here tonight in Jacksonville?
Got friends in Miami and just on my way home.
Friends in Miami, huh?
Yep.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go sit back in the car. I want you to dump the beer on the ground. I want you to wait there till I get back. Go on.
So I put him in his car, made the walk back to mine. The whole time I'm keeping an eye on him, though. I don't recall if I told him I was going to run him. I think it was pretty obvious he knew I was.
When an officer takes a person's identification and does what people call checking it, what he'll do is he goes to his patrol car, gets on the radio, and calls NCIC, which is a National Crime Information Center. If that person is wanted for any other crime, they will get what they call a hit.
NCIC, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Gulf 234. Need a 2829 on a Joseph McGrotha.
234, be advised NCIC is currently down.
10-4, how long before it's back up?
234 is probably gonna be a while.
NCIC's out of service, so I'm not able to run him. I sat there for a few minutes thinking about what to do, and I decided I'm gonna see if I can just get consent to search the car. If he doesn't give it to me, I'm just gonna let him go.
No, unless there's something else that sticks out, like a load of dope on the back seat or a gun sitting in plain view that you would want to talk to him about, you'd have to let him go.
I remember pinning his driver's license to my lapel, right under my pins. And as I'm doing this, I'm watching him, and that's when I noticed something that was very unusual.
What are you doing?
He was constantly looking back over his right shoulder. He was trying to find out exactly where I was. So I said, you know what? I'll solve this problem. Every light I had, I lit it up. And it worked. It turned him around. for a moment. And then that's when I noticed he had reached up and grabbed his rearview mirror. And he had adjusted it to such an angle that at 25, 30 feet, I could see his eyes, so I knew doggone well he was looking for me. Sometimes you get that feeling right before you walk in, that gut check that says, you know what, something isn't right here, and I really didn't get this until it was too late. And then it was just bad.
Coming up.
I started to make the approach.
Show me your hands!
When the hair on the back of my neck just stood up. I knew that this guy was not the normal person. He is trying to find my location, and he's swiveling his head. This would go on and on and on. Subconsciously, I'm seeing red flags. I'm seeing things that are telling me, hey, this isn't right, but I didn't act on it. When I lit the car up with my spotlights and he adjusted that rearview mirror, I knew it was on. Something's going to happen at this point. I honestly thought he was going to flee. Worst case scenario, he might fight. I still haven't called it in on the radio. You know, I felt like I could handle it myself at that point. And I started to make the approach toward his vehicle. I got no more than 3 feet from the front of my car when the hair on the back of my neck just stood up. Just stood up. I mean, it stopped me dead in my tracks. You know, I've always listened to my instincts, and my gut instinct was just telling me, hey man, something is wrong. So I took a deep breath, and I backed up and I went around my mark unit. I wanted to come up on the passenger side of this guy's vehicle at this point because I wanted to keep the vehicle between me and him. I just did not have a good feeling about this at this point. My vision was narrowing a little bit, and you know, my heart rate was starting to pump a little.
Hey, show me your hands. Hands up, where I can see them. Where I can see them, I don't see your hands. Show me your hands, show me your hands.
And when I got close enough to really get a good look at him, you know, the world kind of changed for me at that point. I realized that this guy is waiting to ambush me.
Pete knew what to do, and he had no idea this man was as bad as he was. Suspect's name in this incident was Joseph McGrotha. He was a 27-year-old white male from Warner Robins, Georgia.
Dispatch, this Detective Mike Earl. Could y'all send a crime scene unit to the following address, 100 Beaver Run Drive.
October 11th, 1997, I was an investigator on call for the Warner Robins Police Department. Warner Robins is an Air Force community located just south of Macon, Georgia.
What do we know up to this point, Sergeant?
I was assigned a homicide investigation concerning the death of Kenneth Koski. Mr. Koski was said to have been one of the most kindest, most gentlest persons that one would want to know. He was in his upper 50s. He lived alone. He was a widower. This particular case was called in as a burglary/murder.
Ready to walk me through it?
Let's go.